Hello, everyone, and welcome into the City Council chambers here at Stephenville for this special virtual town hall meeting. It will be the second of these town hall meetings that we have had this year. Boots Elliott, glad to be your host today, and a special welcome to City Manager and as well Assistant City Manager Alan Barnes. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Afternoon, Boots.
Jason King, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Boots.
Glad to have both of y'all along. A little bit later, we will be talking to the director of CETA, as Jeff Sanford will be making an appearance here as well. Let's get right into this one as far as the topics for today and the setup for this virtual town hall. Of course, you can listen right here on KSTV, the Mighty 93, or you can go to the City of Stephenville's Facebook video page, and you just click on video on the side there, and then you can watch and listen to this production as well. We have several questions to go over. If you have anything that you would like to ask the panel, then you can post that question on the city's Facebook page, and Alan will be monitoring that, and we'll jump in with those questions as well. And so it's time to get underway, and I guess, Alan, the first thing that we'll want to talk about is for the governor with GA 18, and it started at midnight early this morning.
That's right. Fortunately, GA 18 allowed us to open up some businesses that have not been open. As everybody knows, that for the past several weeks, our restaurants have been open for drive-through only. GA 18 allowed statewide restaurants to open at 25% capacity as long as they practice their social distancing and tables are a certain distance, and I think parties no more than 6. But also at midnight, there's another thing that occurred, and that is that the count of COVID cases went from the actual number of positives tested to the actual number of active cases. So overnight, we went from 13 to 1 or 0, actually, and I'm not sure. I haven't been updated today on whether or not that last person had cleared the final test. But as such, we're able to become a 50% county, which means that the restaurants and things can open up to 50% capacity. That applies to retail, restaurants, movie theaters, shopping malls, museums, and libraries. So we can allow folks in those particular businesses to serve up to 50% of their capacity. Now, some restaurants have told us that at 50%, their utility bills can't be covered. So they're going to continue to stay with the drive-through and serve folks curbside. I don't know which restaurants are which. I think as we go on, we're going to see more restaurants open up. A lot of folks have said, how do we know what restaurants can open? And if a restaurant has to display a 51% sign, which means that more than 50% of their revenues come from the sales of alcohol. If they have to post one of those signs, and it'll have I think a picture of like a red gun or something on it to say that guns are not allowed. But if they have to post a 51% sign, then they cannot open. They're classified under TABC laws as a bar, and the governor has specifically closed bars. One of the things that GA 18 did not do is reopen the personal service businesses like the barbershops and massage establishments, tattoo parlors, those things. There's been a lot of question about that, and it's up to the discretion of the communities whether or not they interpret GA 18 as keeping those facilities closed, or being too vague to keep them closed.
Well, and we've seen a lot of the media out of the Metroplex with some salon owners that have decided to defy the orders and have had law enforcement get to show up at their front door with a document. So Are we having any issues like that around here?
We're fielding a lot of calls about them. The it's our understanding they are licensed by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations, TDLR. And on TDLR's website, it says that if they open, then they are subject to uh, uh, sanctions by TDLR. In other words, if they decide to open, TDLR can take action against their license. I don't know if that means that they'll come in and shut them down. I don't know if it means I don't know what that means. But what we've been doing when we get calls from those businesses is referring them to their licensing uh, body and directing their questions to TDLR, because that's what we don't want to see is we don't want to see a barbershop open, for example, and begin serving the public, and then the TDLR come in, take their license, and take away their livelihood permanently. And those are some of the concerns that we have and have been talking about. We've talked with the governor's office, the attorney general's office, our state rep's office, trying to get some clarification. And as of right now, we've not.
Jason, as far as churches, what can we tell us about percentages for them? Because I know so many people in this community are ready to go back to a Sunday sanctuary.
Yes, and so there's not a percentage per se with churches. Uh, on two different occasions now, the governor and attorney general have put out a document that they call guidance for houses of worship during the COVID-19 crisis, and it lists several recommendations for churches. And first and foremost, it says that they would like them to concentrate on doing services remotely if possible. But if they do have in-person services, then there's several of the social distancing guidelines that we use across all society right now that should be in practice. But it doesn't list a percentage, and it doesn't try to keep people away from churches. Uh, it kind of leaves it up in the hands of the pastors and the congregations on what they think's best for each church.
So individual decisions will be made on that here in the
Yes.
coming weeks. All right. Another question that I had to do with the businesses that were told you got to leave the front doors open. It's getting warm outside,
Yes, it is.
and occasionally critters can make their way through the front door if they're left open. So what can you tell us about that?
I think we can expect that to change very, very soon. Uh, we have a council meeting next Tuesday, and we'll be addressing several of these things and hopefully adopting some language that just follows along with the state guidelines. And so I think some of those things are very likely to change here in the near future.
And one other thing, wanted to make sure that we did hear this earlier. So many of the counties are going to be opening at 25% up for certain, but because of Erath County status right now, 50% is where we are, correct?
That's correct.
All right, let's take our first break here in this virtual town hall meeting. When we come back, we'll talk some more about the specifics on the numbers that have recovered here in Erath County, and some other things going on with the city that you'll notice on our city streets in the upcoming weeks as the virtual town hall meeting from City Council in Stephenville continues right after this.
Peacocks is thrilled to announce we are now open for limited seating. As restrictions are lifted, we
Welcome back to City Council Chambers for this virtual town hall meeting here on May the 1st. Jason, a couple other things having to do with healthcare professionals wanting to return to work. What are you hearing about that here on the local front?
We've had some conversations with our local medical community, and I think they're going to slowly start reintegrating some of the elective procedures and those things that the governor's has allowed opening up with his orders. Doesn't sound like that's something that just turns on overnight, but they are gearing up for that.
Well, and don't hospitals have to remain a certain percentage of capacity open to keep things open in the community?
Yes, that's correct. I don't remember what the specific percentage number is. 15% that is required by order of their resources dedicated to COVID-19.
And Alan, from what I understand, our hospital has plenty of capacity right now. Is that correct?
That's what the hospital administrator tells us. We have a conference call every Tuesday with the medical community in Tarleton and the county and us, and we are assured by Chris Liu, the hospital administrator, that they have plenty of capacity at this point.
All right. Along the lines of medical that I'm seeing from some of the messaging has to do with the obscure crossover dealing with massages, on whether that is a medical something that is needed, if it's prescribed by a doctor. Being that massages, these parlors are not able to be open, where do we fall in that?
The governor has all of the orders have closed the massage establishments, but if it is a medical procedure ordered by a doctor or chiropractor, then the massage they can do the massages. We've been asked quite a bit about that, and actually that's a relatively easy question to answer, so long as they can demonstrate that it is a medical procedure, the massage, then they can do them.
Well, prescription by a doctor makes that pretty easy to verify, I'm assuming.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk a little bit. You mentioned earlier about the numbers. 13 has been the number that's been talked about of cases throughout the state. One terrible passing for the county, the other 12. It's been over 2 weeks I've seen since a new case has come back positive. And with that being the case, other than the gentleman I mentioned earlier, it has been all recoveries with the exception of 1 or 2. Is that correct?
Yeah. We've been told by the county that all but I think it's 2 have received their second negative test. We have 2 that are waiting for the second negative test. They're not showing any symptoms right now. They've gone through all the quarantine protocol of the no symptoms for 7 days, no fever for 72 hours without medication. They're just waiting for their final test. But we have 10 who have recovered or are able to come out of quarantine. I don't think the state's calling it recovered. I don't remember what day. They've met their protocol, I think is what they're saying.
Well, and then with that being the case, do we know from the county, do we have outstanding tests right now waiting on results?
Yeah. Actually, the providers are required to give us, the city,
Okay.
The number of tests that they do each day and the number of positives and negatives. And the reason they have that is because of the order in place. As of 5 p.m. yesterday, there have been 466 tests. I don't think that includes the 17 that the National Guard did earlier in the week. As you said, we've had 13 positives. We've had 1 fatality. We've had 10 recoveries and 2 that are probably going to be recoveries. We've had 345 negative tests, and we have 102 tests outstanding. That number bounces between about 80 and about 115 during the week, depending on the number of tests that we get back.
One of the things you had mentioned earlier, the last one, was that these tests are anywhere from the rapid test that you receive in 15 minutes to some are as much as 2 weeks. Are you still seeing that same deviation?
We are, but it's our understanding that the turnaround time is down to about 72 hours, give or take. Early on, our healthcare facilities had to send the test to another state. I think it was Utah for analysis, and I think they're using a lab in Arlington now, Arlington or Irving, I don't remember which, but a nearby lab. So they are getting them back quicker.
Jason, one of the things with the city, I know this doesn't have as much to do with the current topic, but the residents are going to want to know this as well, and that's some projects that are about to come up on Lincolnville Road and Graham. Walk us through those, please.
Yes, sir. Yesterday, the Texas Department of Transportation put out notice, and then we helped them put out notice, and I believe it's on May 8th. They'll be starting construction on Lincolnville Road from Bluebonnet on the west end of town all the way to Bates Street on the east end of town. And I think that's going to take most of the summer, and there will be some, traffic changes and things like that. And so we just ask folks during that to be patient. But
So is it redoing the road, or is it utilities it dealing with?
my understanding, I believe they're redoing the road.
All right, and then after that, then I know you were talking to us about some stuff coming up with Graham Street.
Yes, and I won't say near future, but it's on TxDOT's calendar. And it'll take a while, but when that does start, they'll be totally replacing Graham Street from city limits to city limits, and that will take a while. When that's done, we'll be doing some utility work of our own along with that, replacing water and sewer lines to try to get all that done at the same time.
Okay, we're going to take our last break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about economics going on with some businesses. We're going to ask Jeff Sanford to come forward as we'll bend his ear for a little bit. You are listening to the virtual town hall meeting, and we're back after this on KSTV, The Mighty 93. City Council chambers here in Stephenville as we are visiting about things going on specifically with GA 18 that came out from the governor earlier today. We did have a question come in, Alan, and it was this basic: when do we think salons will be opened? So what is the straightforward answer for that?
That's the $1 million question. The governor has reiterated that it's his goal or his stated intent that those facilities be closed. He is going to speak again and address some issues. I believe it's May 18th. I don't think the time's been set yet, but we're hoping on May 18th that he'll provide some guidance on when everything can open up. We hope that we continue the positive trend in flattening the curve, and he will let the 25% counties open to 50 and maybe us to 75 or whatever. But we hope that we'll get some indication at that point. He indicated early last week that we would have some guidance with GA18, which we did not.
So May 18th seems to be the next target date when we have some decisions going forward.
That's what we understand.
All right, now welcome into the broadcast, Jeff Sanford from Stephenville Economic Development Authority. Jeff, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Boots. Good to be here.
And I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about, what CETA has going on to help businesses through all this, and it came in the mail today, was that the restaurant cards have started making their way into people's mailboxes.
Yeah, what a great idea to have out there for folks to be able to start generating the need, the want to go into our restaurants that have been hurting. Even those that have been able to stay open a little bit, they're now able to start the process of opening back up. And I think that it goes without saying, and Alan, if I can do this, we've got to thank our people for abiding by the stay-at-home rules over the time, because that has allowed these numbers to stay low. But I also want to give great thanks to our businesses who have had tremendous patience, have had financial resources hindered, and now we want to help them out. And this is one way. If we can get those people, our citizens, an opportunity and a reason to want to go out and patronize our businesses is a good way, and starting with the restaurants.
Well, and explain the protocol on how this is going to work when you get a card in the mail.
Yeah, I'll turn it back over to Alan.
You'll get a card in the mail, and on the back side we'll have some information for you to fill out. It's got your water account. We send them to residential water customers. It has your individual water account, so it's linked to your address, and it's going to ask who is cashing in the request. I think it asked for their signature, maybe. Anyway, there are a couple of minor questions on the back about who's doing it, and then what will happen is the restaurants will fill out the rest of the information on the back. We'll turn it into us, and we'll write them a check.
So the card basically becomes cash as the consumer is spending at a restaurant. It works as cash.
Yeah, up to $25. Now, if they go somewhere and they get a $12 meal, they don't get the other $13.
There's no change back.
Correct.
All right, and then Jeff, you were also talking about some of the things, the businesses that have had to had so much patience now. Another thing I think it's great that CETA is doing to help has to do with sanitize. And y'all have been on the forefront of helping businesses get some product that at times has been tough to find in the stores.
Well, it's amazing, and we do have some great local businesses who are also trying to get some and do that from a retail perspective. We know that with some of the orders that have come down, either locally, state, or beyond, that those protocols have to be met. And we want to not only ensure safety and security and cleanliness for the customer base that comes in, but also the employee base that has to work every day. And so we've already doled out about 32 gallons. We have several gallons left that we've been able to acquire, and we are going to put those in businesses, the hands of businesses who need them, to help not only for the hands at the front of the building as people come in, but also in spray bottles. They can wipe down high touch areas and keep the place as clean as possible to keep that exposure level down.
And so if businesses didn't know about this and want to take advantage and reach out to the stuff that y'all are doing for free, how do they reach you?
Absolutely. Just get on our website, StephenvilleEDA.com. They can certainly call us, and that will be a help as well, 459 4920 and or 21 4921. That's going to be helpful. We also are going to have thermometers boots. Those are coming in next week. A lot of people have been requesting thermometers to help. I know even as we enter City Hall, we had to take our temperature, and in many other businesses as well, to protect those customers, but also their employees, that if they're sick or showing symptoms, we want them to stay home. We don't want them to have any chance of exposing our folks. So that's going to be it. But there's so many programs out there. We have another great one that the city and CETA have combined with. It's a personal services loan grant program that will launch next week. This is going to be a big deal for those folks that y'all have been talking about for the last few minutes here, to try to assist our personal services who have been forced to shut down with grants up to $2,500. There are a few qualifications that they have to have, but this will help them maybe buy a few more days, a few more weeks till they are able to open.
Yeah, because as you and I have talked about this last week, they're closed by no fault of their own, and so why are they having to struggle? I think this is great that the city and CETA are coming forward with these grants.
It's a big deal. You know, when the other options that were out there that we've tried to help get people exposed to are the EIDL, as well as the PPP. The EIDL, over 5 million apps were put out there, but only 96,000 have been processed, so that's temporarily suspended. But the PPP on the payroll protection plan, it's running out, but there is still an opportunity for businesses to go and apply. We just we want to suggest some urgency in doing so, that they get that in there as soon as possible. And that's helping a lot of our businesses as well to buy some time until we can get our customers back in those stores.
What else do you want to get out from CETA to the business community before we wrap up this afternoon?
Well, I think this is a big deal right now, that everybody has to maintain some of these social distancing protocols, the cleanliness protocols. We want this place to open up. The good news is, Boots, that not only have we done a great job in our county, Erath County, but a lot of our trade area has also done a great job. So we should feel somewhat secure in knowing that many of those people that frequent our businesses on a regular basis also are coming from places where it has been relatively safe. We always know that there's an opportunity for exposure, but this at least is starting that process of getting people out of their homes into these restaurants and retail establishments and other places within our community that can now generate that income for the businesses which are the backbone of our community.
Alan, final words from you, sir. Anything to bring forward?
Boots, the last question, it's more of a statement that was on the internet, is the reason you were asking about the barbershops is because you need a haircut.
You know, that has to come from my staff. I'm thinking that probably did that. And there's a few of them right now that are stuffing envelopes that may get to stuff for a few more days now.
Boots, if I can add also, I think this came in on mine as well, that if people go to our Facebook page, much like they do to you guys and to the city of Stephenville, if they go to the Stephenville Economic Development Authority Facebook page, they can find all the information there.
Perfect. Folks, if you're watching, listening, go to the local restaurants. Go to local businesses. They now have the ability to take care of you. A lot of great restaurants in this town, and they need your help. They've been around to sponsor how many ever youth leagues, everything else that has to do with this town, and now it's our opportunity to take care of them. And I invite you to go out to see all the local restaurants. It should be in your mail today or the next day for this $25 certificate that we hope that you put a lot more dollars on top of that into the local restaurant pockets. For Alan, for Jason, for Jeff, I'm Boots Elliott. Until probably May 18th, when we think the governor will speak again. This has been a virtual town hall meeting from Stephenville. So long, everybody. Have a great weekend.